Okay, we have a hysterical panel tonight on CBC. They're talking about Trump, Greenland. You'll see these panels at CBC are clown world. Get somebody on there that disagrees. As you'll see, it's the same position over and over and over, and it's all Trump derangement.
European leaders are preparing for an emergency meeting after the U.S. president threatened a new round of tariffs in his effort to acquire Greenland. Donald Trump has singled out the 8 countries that have sent small numbers of military personnel to Greenland, and starting February 1st, they'll each face a 10% tariff that goes up to 25% on June 1st. Trump says the tariff will be in place until the United States is able to purchase Greenland.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
While in Doha over the weekend, Prime Minister Mark Carney responded to this terror threat from the president, a threat that comes as Canada considers whether to send its own troops to Greenland for military exercises with those very NATO allies.
It's a serious situation, and we're concerned. We're concerned about this escalation. The future of Greenland, decisions about the future of Greenland are for Greenland and Denmark to decide. And the security of Greenland, security is first and foremost for them, but very much falls within the responsibilities of NATO.
Now, Trump has claimed the United States wants Greenland for national security purposes, but new reporting and new revelation shows that's not the only reason. In a text message to Norway's Prime Minister, Trump said another reason is that he didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize. Trump went on to write in that text, "I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper."
Yeah, what's up, Emraz? Yeah.
For the United States of America. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland.
It's so important that all our allies in the NATO alliance, in the European Union, stand up for these principles to show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us.
Okay, like every day, it's a lot. We're going to start. We got the power panel. So Priya Dwivedi, she was an advisor to former Prime Minister.
Yeah, it's almost, I don't think you should call these panels because it implies like you're just talking to the same person over and over and over.
Mr. Justin Trudeau. Brad Levine is a former national campaign director for the NDP. Tim Powers has worked as a strategist for conservative parties. And here with me in the studio is journalist and author Paul Wells. Paul,
look, they just throw that guy in there. Oh, this person's been a strategist for conservatives. Watch all the takes here. There's no point. This is like, this seems like they're trying to do a trick on Canadians. Oh, look, we have all points of view here represented.
Tim Powers has worked as a strategist for conservative parties. And here with me in the studio is journalist and author Paul Wells. Paul, I don't know if you've received a text message from the President of the United States or got looped into that text chain, but each day this seems to go to a whole new level that...
What do you mean, new having your tag? What does that mean?
Undermines North Atlantic cooperation in a pretty profound way. What do you make of this all today?
Yeah, I mean, I think recess is over. Like the President of the United States is now a clear threat to the survival of NATO, and I'm not full of ideas about.
Okay, there's one Trump derangement syndrome take. Recess is over.
What to do about it? But if I was the Chief of the Defense Staff of Canada, I would send every piece of kit that's not nailed down to nuke tonight. Which unfortunately,
the capital of Greenland, yes. Nuke, not nuke yes. as in nuclear weapons. Just keep
and unfortunately, that would leave large swaths of Canadian territory undefended. But we got to hope that Trump's going to take him in the order he talks about in public and try and take Greenland first. I mean, I was impressed by the sort of 3-card Monty effect.
Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I don't know why they changed that.
of Prime Minister Carney congratulating Trump on taking Maduro out of Venezuela, while Anita Anand and the Governor General got ready to go to Greenland. But I'm not sure this is Anita Anand and the Governor General's scale of threat anymore. I think it's a military threat, and I think it should be met with serious engagement in military resources. One would hope they wouldn't be used, but I think it's only a hope at this point.
So, Priya, it's a grim calculus every country has to do right now that, as we were talking about last
Mountain Woman, hello. Yes, you're right. Sheep TV. I agree.
week on the show.
By the way, I'm fine with having even two people on the panel maybe with the same take or whatever, but when you have everybody on there with the same take, it's ridiculous. Because maybe I'm wrong. Obviously, I'm not going to be correct on any issue, just like any person, or on every issue. Hopefully I'm correct on some issues, not on any, but you know what I mean. But these CBC panels, it's always people agreeing with each other for the most part.
Through line from the ICE agents to Greenland is do what we say and you won't get hurt, is what it sounds like. How do you respond to this latest escalation?
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is obviously ridiculous and worrying on several levels, right? But the thing that sort of jumped out at me,
look, wouldn't it be a benefit for the average Canadian who's watching CBC on this Monday night? Why not get somebody on there who's pro-MAGA or pro-Trump, just to hear what they have to say? Call them from the States, get them up there. Oh, this is what Trump is thinking. This is what he's doing. This is why he believes he needs Greenland, things like that. But you're just going to get four of the same take over and over.
This, over the recent letter revelations or text message revelations, you have to think of them in the context of his Truth Social post over the weekend. He posted it on Saturday, in which he makes a suggestion that the U.S. acquisition of Greenland would then in turn be beneficial for Canadian security because of the way the Golden Dome is set up. And then he goes on to say that the Golden Dome can only really...
Hey, the Golden Dome. MRAS, you talk about that a few times.
...be fully operational if the U.S. acquires Greenland. So now that we've got Trump lumping in Canada's security to the U.S. acquiring Greenland, to Paul's point, I do think we need to level up the threat level here. Take that in conjunction with the recent reporting out of NBC News very recently that suggests that Trump has honed in on Canada's Arctic as being a particular concern of his in the last few weeks. And we have to start connecting some of these dots in terms of what's being explicitly put out there by the Trump administration. I mentioned this last week, but if you consider the language in the National Security Strategy, which was released by the Trump administration right before the holidays in December, it refers to a bunch of stuff like preserving freedom of navigation in sea lanes and continued access to strategic locations. Now, if you rewind a little bit to April of 2025, Trump signed an executive order that was titled Restoring America's Maritime Dominance. Yeah. And that made reference to both freedom of navigation and American dominance in the Arctic waterways. So I think we need to seriously start being concerned that Trump has the Northwest Passage in his sights. And it's very possible that the Northwest Passage ends up either being Trump's next play, onto the next shiny thing, or he'll start lumping in the Northwest Passage more explicitly in with his Greenland acquisition.
Right. And the National Security Strategy, which came out in November, it doesn't mention Greenland once, but a lot of the principles guiding this are certainly there. And Tim, before we get to you, I want to show people some of that NBC reporting, because they published this story on yesterday, and the headline is...
So you'll see, as this show continues, if you're watching this show, again, just an average Canadian on their couch, it almost sounds like there's about to be a world war. You'll see the rhetoric even continues to get ramped up as we keep moving on here. Get somebody on there. Again, I made the point. Just show the other side. It's not fair to do this when you have four guests. And again, maybe all the guests are correct. Maybe they're correct to be hysterical about this, but...
That is Trump's latest Western Hemisphere fixation, Canada. It goes on to report that, according to sources, Trump is increasingly complaining to aides about Canada's vulnerability to U.S. adversaries in the Arctic. So here we are. The UK, Tim, and Europe thought they had trade deals with Trump that settled tariffs, and look at where they are, right? It's instructive as well as alarming, I think, for people here in Canada. What are your thoughts on it all?
Well, if you go back, was it Stephen Miller who said, look, this is all about power, and people respect power and raw power, and Trump apparently is trying to demonstrate that. Well, I think the pushback is equally.
So this is the conservative on the panel. War, no. Takeover, maybe. Well, I think Trump is serious about Greenland. It's a Monty Python moment. NATO going to war with NATO. Never mind that the U.S. pays their bills. LOL. And like, yeah, I made the point in other videos that I don't really think Canada has much of a leg to stand on to be that opposed to this, given our years and years of not even reaching the 2% NATO target. I think Canada's kind of paying right now, not just Canada, but other countries as well, for years underfunding NATO, taking it for granted that America's just always going to be like the world's dad and come around and fix a bunch of problems. Weak little Mr. Burns gets a puff of Trump chest. He will give it up. I don't know who you're referring to, but yeah. Yeah, this guy here.
Was it Stephen Miller who said, look, this is all about power, and people respect power and raw power, and Trump apparently is trying to demonstrate that? Well, I think the pushback is equally demonstrating power as best you can muster. I mean, I agree with Paul and Supriya. The power...
That should be the slogan of CBC. Yeah, I agree with everybody here.
Power as best you can muster. I mean, I agree with Paul and Supriya. The power of being there, of showing unity of force. It may not be enough, but it's better than just saying, no, we can't do anything about this. The other thing, David, you have to think that, let's see some power outside the executive branch in the United States right now. I mean, the Senate Majority Leader, who is Republican, he apparently is holding his powder, wanting to keep it dry. Now might be a time to light that powder and make it less dry, because, again, Trump was elected not to have more foreign wars. There's polling in the United States that resoundingly shows Americans are not for this. And if there was ever proof, if it was needed, that the president potentially is dealing with, his mental well-being. I mean, that text today, can you imagine in the era of
Jeez. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay, Emraz, you've said Mr. Burns before. Holy, I'm out to lunch. I didn't even know that. I've seen memes, like I've definitely seen the memes and his that meme, right, of his body. That's what you're referring to, right? He's sitting there with Trump. He's all sloped over. But I didn't know that like really had become sort of a meme. I don't know. No one I talk to has ever called him Mr. Burns. That's very funny. I did see those memes though, where his posture is like an S. Power in politics, where we all agree we're morons, yeah.
Of Clinton or Reagan or any other U.S. president, George W. Bush, if a text like that, a document like that went out saying, well, I'm going to do this because I didn't get the Nobel Prize, well, we'd be talking about when's the impeachment?
Oh my gosh, man. This guy's just losing his mind now. Like, I don't know what, again, I'm not even saying that what they're saying is like, I mean, obviously you don't want things to escalate into a war. I don't want that. I don't think anyone wants that. But can you get a guy on there or a woman on there? Hear this, Mr. Burns. That is funny. Who's just going to give some rationale of what Trump is saying or explain it from Trump's point of view, why he would want Greenland. Why does he think NATO is not up to the task? Things like that.
Hearing started. I mean, a lot of this now is going to have to be settled, not just by us and others standing strong for Greenland, but in the United States and saying we need to do something here.
That was, I think, the worst take so far, and that's the conservative. The United States, we need to do something here. Trump's been president now for in total like 5 years. every time he does anything, the world throws their arms up and just panics, basically like a child going to tattletale on the teacher.
Brad, when the president says he wants peace, I mean, apparently it means a big piece of Denmark, you know, by acquiring Greenland through any means possible. It is not, you know, the peace NATO was intended to preserve.
Yeah, I don't know what article in NATO has where it's when a foreign adversary attacks one of the members of NATO. Now we've got a NATO member, clearly attacking and threatening with invasion outright. When he says that nothing is off the table, maybe he would buy it, but he hasn't ruled out. And today he was suggesting that he would be fine by taking it by force. That's very scary. If we don't send troops to Greenland, then we better start sending our troops to our own Arctic in a much more serious way. What I'm going to be finding interesting is Carney's response over the coming days. We've seen his response be somewhat muted because of what we think is, I think, keeping one eye on the CUSMA trade deal in the coming months. You know, his Venezuela, note, I found it to be a little, it was ham-fisted, and he was trying to tie himself into knots. Not to overly criticize Trump for doing that, what he did in Venezuela, but also keeping that door open that he's not going to the mat for the outgoing leader of Venezuela. How will he respond here? Because we have tariffs already on things that aren't covered in the CUSMA. So the threats to our allies in Europe for putting on a tariff if they stand in his way, i.e., sending troops to Greenland. What is standing in our way? And I think see how far liberal foreign policy has gone when you take a look at Pearson. And where's Canada's voice? We saw Lloyd Axworthy out recently saying, "What is?"
Yeah, we're gonna get the weak Agnes and Babcock faction. We can't afford troops. We have plenty of military tampons. Tampon Tim Walz. Yeah, I mean, I would rather the U.S. not feel the need to do this with Greenland. Like, it would be better if, I guess, they just trusted that NATO and Denmark would take care of Greenland and kind of work together with the U.S. But I think my basic point is that USA for so long has been kind of keeping all of these Western countries safe. Not even kind of, it just has been. It's Canada, for sure. USA has been keeping us safe, and other countries have not been contributing nearly as much into military defense as US. I don't know how long that can just continue on before somebody is going to win the presidency of US and say, hey, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Our citizens have to pay into this. Other citizens pay less into their military. Like, for example, Canada has, it's not very good anymore. We have socialized healthcare, so free healthcare. It's good in certain circumstances. Sometimes it's not. The U.S. doesn't have that. So a lot of tax money of U.S. dollars, I think it's like $1 trillion a year, goes to their defense budget. It makes sense that at some point, if Canada and other countries are just letting USA take care of all this defense spending and all this burden, that someone's going to win the presidency in the U.S. and say, what the heck is this? Maybe we should actually get something for this disproportionate spending we do. So that's basically my take.
What is he doing, making a deal with China? It'd be very interesting to see in the coming days how he manages to be, with his NATO allies, the European allies, by sending troops to Greenland. And if he doesn't, what is he signaling to our allies in Europe? Is everything on the table until we get a CUSMA deal? I think a lot of Canadians are going to be uncomfortable with that.
But Paul, you go back to what your advice that let's send what we can there. I mean, when people are talking about deploying armed forces to Greenland right now, they say, oh, it's training exercises to show that NATO works.
Yeah, if NATO would F off, Greenland would make a deal. They might, because there might be a deal on the table that gives like every citizen of Greenland a lot of money. Maybe they'd go, maybe not so bad. They want to, but the rest of them want to get involved.
We can protect Arctic sovereignty. Underneath it all, it's NATO members deploying NATO forces to NATO territory to discourage.
This is the biggest hysterical take here.
breach aggression from a NATO member.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that just changes your calculation on any major decision you make in any realm of policy as a leader.
I don't know. It's an understatement to say I don't know Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of Britain, very well. I understand the tone he took today. This is an outrage. This is incorrect behavior. This makes a mockery of nearly a century's worth of assumptions in Western security, and so I get that people are sort of sputtering, but sputtering's not enough. And I think we're getting to the point where people need to say an American attempt to take territory that doesn't belong to them will be rebutted by those NATO countries that take NATO seriously. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think we could be, I think by the time this panel meets next Monday,
who knows where we'll be?
Yeah.
No, I know.
It's getting time to say real things.
But you know, Supriya, is NATO...
What does that mean? By the time this panel meets next Monday, is he saying there's not going to be a CBC show in 1 week?
Does NATO still exist in a world where the United States can threaten and bully founding members of the alliance to give it what it wants or else?
I mean, it exists in name, right? But to
Like
the point
Kuzma.
that everybody's making on the panel, if you have one member that's actively threatening another member, then arguably, right, it's kind of broken down. The very system has broken down. So I don't know. I mean, I think the best thing that some of the EU leaders, as well as Prime Minister Starmer, could do at this point is to get a flux capacitor and a DeLorean, go back in time, back when he slapped tariffs onto the EU and was, kind of screwing around with the UK on their trade deal, and not suck up to him the way they did and turn it out to be some big win. I don't think this strategy of kissing the dear leader's ring has played out for anyone. Right. Least of all, the EU and soon to potentially soon to be us. So I think there's strength in numbers. They should have done it like 6-7 months ago. But the next best time to do it is now. So I'd really like to see some, less strong words and seriously monitoring the situation and some actual, action and might that will show us a real sense of solidarity with Greenland.
Okay, Tim, then Brad.
So what does that mean? Does she want there to be a war?
There's strength in numbers. They should have done it like 6-7 months ago. But the next best time to do it is now. So I'd really like to see some, less strong words and seriously monitoring the situation and some actual, action and might that will show us a real sense of solidarity with Greenland.
Okay, Tim, then Brad. Super quick.
Does that mean you want war as you're sitting in wherever you're sitting, some apartment in Toronto or something? This is possibly another false flag. It's the MSM and leftist machine that is pushing the narrative. U.S. already has several bases on the island and contributes to the economy. Yeah, it just sounds like the CBC is talking like this, like it's the end of the world. Yeah. DeLorean.
Because we're going to take a break.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look, we also know the United States is concerned about China and Russia, and park the Nobel Peace Prize thing for a moment. They still have treaties that allow them to repopulate Greenland. Perhaps they ought to remind the president of that in Davos. They used to have thousands, tens of thousands of people there. They don't. The second thing I'd say quickly, David, is that, Canada finds itself back in a kind of a 1949, 1939 world, except the enemy is in Germany now. It's the uncertainty of America. We went to Europe and aided our allies in 14. We did it in 39. So helping Greenland here, regardless of what NATO may currently be, is a pretty normal thing for Canada to do, and it is consistent with our history.
Yep, Brad, quick last thoughts.
Oh, it's just like a competition of who can be the most outraged.
Just listen, I mean,
I know it's a serious situation. I'm not trying to say this is nothing. This isn't just like a mean tweet, but if you believe that 2 weeks to change the curve, most likely this narrative will captivate the leftists to rally. Totally. Yeah, 2 weeks to flatten the curve was, I think, the moment when the normies started to not trust the media. Like, if you're paying attention before that, I think you already didn't trust it, but I think that got the normies to be like, what the hell is this? Maybe not all of them, but they were tricked.
The United States has access to Greenland. There's absolutely no difference between what they can do currently than what they do if they purchased it outright. There's absolutely no difference. But again, we're looking at reason here, and this is a very unreasonable man that we're working with. I mean, my goodness, I didn't get a prize, and therefore I'm going to take you over by force. You gotta push back on a bully.
Yeah, I go back to what
That's not. He's just trolling when he says that. That's not the reason he wants Greenland.
he said to the New York Times in that interview in the Oval Office with the 4 reporters. Psychologically, I just want to own it. Leasing it is not enough. So we'll see.
Okay, I'm going to probably end the stream. Let me just see something here. But I'll probably just go live again. I mean, or I can just kind of stay streaming, but yeah, I'll probably just end the stream and then go live again with a different video, but and kind of chop the videos up like this. But anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great, I'll finish these chats here. Only 9% did not fall for the two. Really? Well, yeah, holy crap. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, pretty much everybody did. That's not even why. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.